Summer couldn't pinpoint the moment when everything between her and Ethan had curdled into this. Hurt. It radiated from every bone, 1,000 icy needles nailing her marrow in place. The single word crowded her skull until even breathing felt like tearing wet paper. She lay splayed on the freezing hardwood, sweat-drenched bangs plastered to her bloodless cheeks. Through the haze she saw him, immaculate charcoal suit, shoulders squared, standing a few yards away like a judge who'd already passed sentence. Still planning to run? His voice was gravel rubbed in frost, soft as a whisper yet heavy as a verdict. His eyes, once a place she drowned willingly, were flat and glacial, as if she were furniture that had disappointed him. Summer shuddered. She forced her trembling arms to lift her torso, knees scraping the planks, twin brands of fire. Inch by inch she crawled until her fingers hooked the cuff of his trousers. Tears dropped like broken beads, darkening the wool. "Please, let me go." The plea cracked in her throat, every syllable paid for with the last of her strength. "Let you go." A low laugh scraped out of him, all contempt and splintered glass. He dropped into a crouch, long fingers yanking her chin up until her jaw sang. She met the blast furnace glare of a man possessed. "Let you run back to him?" The roar rattled her eardrums. "Summer, you're mine, yesterday, tomorrow, forever." Before she could draw breath, he hooked an arm under her knees and hoisted her against his chest. She thrashed, fists drumming his sternum, heels flailing at empty air. "Put me down. I won't go with you. Put me down." The hallway swallowed her screams. The lakefront manor answered with silence. He carried her into the master suite and threw her onto the mattress. Her spine slammed into the frame, lightning shooting up her back. Ethan towered above, pupils storm black. He loosened his tie with one violent tug. "Stop wasting air. You're not going anywhere." He descended, pinning her wrists above her head, cartilage grinding. His mouth brushed hers. She jerked away. A single tear slipped, soaking the sheet like a bullet hole in snow. The drop seemed to short-circuit him. The rage ebbed. Something gentler, almost wounded, flickered across his face. He eased his grip, thumb grazing the damp trail, hand trembling. "You hate me that much?" The question was raw, stripped of armor. A humorless chuckle slipped out as he stepped back, locked the door, the metallic click ringing like a judge's gavel. Alone, Summer curled into a trembling coma, biting her lip until it bled. The bracelets of bruise around her wrists throbbed, but the ache in her chest eclipsed them. She couldn't reconcile this stranger with the boy who once held an umbrella over her in a storm, who tucked her frozen hands inside his coat and called it home. At midnight she slid open the nightstand drawer. A lone bobby pin lay inside, relic of the last escape plan. She closed her fist around it, pressed the metal tip to her pulse, and dragged. Morning. Ethan stepped in, latte in hand, and froze. Summer lay motionless, a makeshift tourniquet of towel around her wrist, sheets freckled red. "Have you lost your mind?" The cup hit the floor, porcelain shattering like ice. He ripped the towel away, the shallow gill of crimson turning his voice into a stammer. "Don't you dare." She opened her eyes, tears sliding sideways into her hair. "Then let me leave. Or next time I finish the sentence." Not another word. Panic cracked his mask. He lurched for the intercom, shouting for the private physician. The walls of the lakefront manor echoing with a terror he'd never let her see before. Summer listened to his retreating sprint and shut her eyes. The sting in her wrist felt like victory, proof that even a cage could bleed. It wasn't long before Ethan burst in, a doctor on his heels, while the private physician cleaned and dressed Summer's wound. Ethan stood rigid at the foot of the bed, fists clenched so hard his knuckles blanched, eyes fixed on the thin line of blood still seeping through the gauze, as though the cut had been sliced straight into his own heart. "It's only a surface laceration, no arterial damage," the doctor warned, snapping his bag shut. "But her emotions are extremely unstable. Absolute rest, no more shocks, no more stress." Then he left. Once again the master suite held only the two of them, the air so heavy it felt vacuum-sealed. Ethan moved to the edge of the mattress, dropped to one knee, and leveled his gaze on Summer's blood-drained face. His voice came out hoarse, stripped raw. "Why did you hurt yourself?" Summer turned her cheek into the pillow, refusing to meet his eyes. "Compared to being locked up by you, this little sting is nothing. Ethan, what will it take for you to let me go?" His heart twisted as if someone had reached in and wrenched it sideways. He lifted a hand toward her cheek, froze midair, then let it fall useless at his side. "I can't let you leave, Summer. I just can't." "You can't?" She whipped her head around, eyes glittering with scorn and bottomless despair. "What you can't do is accept that I don't love you anymore. Look at yourself. Look. You're acting like a lunatic." Every muscle in his body locked. The color drained from his face. A lunatic? Yes. Terror of losing her had driven him to the most extreme shackles, and all it had earned was her loathing and fresh scars. Ethan pushed upright, staggered back a pace, pain flooding his irises. "I'll have Harris look after you. Get some rest." He fled, pulling slamming the door shut as though the hounds of hell snapped at his heels, afraid one more second in that suffocating silence would swallow him whole. Summer watched his retreating back, tears sliding hot into her hair. She knew this tug-of-war was far from finished. The gash on her wrist was only the latest brand in a captivity that wore love like a mask. Ethan escaped to Bluebird, slammed the door, and sagged against it until he slid to the carpet. From a drawer he withdrew a tarnished tin, its lid scraping loud in the hush. Inside lay a few yellowing photos and a tiny cherry blossom hairpin. In the pictures Summer laughed, eyes curved, a high ponytail threaded through with the same delicate hairpin. It was the third spring they were together. He'd driven her to the cherry orchard outside town. She'd darted through drifts of petals, skirt fluttering like a freed butterfly, while he stood back with the camera, sunlight filling her face and, by extension, his whole chest. "Ethan, look. This blossom is huge." She'd run up, cupping a silky bloom, brushing it against his nose. "Smell amazing, right?" He'd grinned, brushed petals from her hair, voice soft enough to melt. "Amazing. Sweeter than anything." Another picture, a rainy evening. Summer had just clocked out and forgotten an umbrella, so he'd waited under a wide black canopy outside her office, half his trench soaked through. "You'll catch cold," she'd scolded, trying to dry his sleeve. He trapped her fingers against his warm chest and laughed. "Better me than you." Now Ethan traced her photographed smile, tears dropping without warning. He remembered when the air itself tasted sweet. He used to pick every fleck of cilantro from her bowl because she hated it. He'd fumble through brewing brown sugar ginger tea when cramps hit, hideous flavor and all, and she'd drink every drop while teasing him. He'd brew warm milk and sit beside her through all-night projects, never complaining. When had the poison started? The day he took over Caldwell and drowned in boardroom knives. The night he saw her laughing with another man and felt rabid jealousy bite its way up his throat. All he knew was the terror that the world would hurt her. Terror worse that she might walk away. So he'd chosen the wrong weapon. Padlocks disguised as protection. Forgetting she asked for sky, not cages. A soft knock drifted from the hallway. "Harris, sir. Summer says she'd like some congee." Ethan jolted, scrubbed his face, laid the photos and cherry blossom hairpin back in their metal cradle. By the time he opened the door, every trace of frailty was buried. He adjusted his collar, tone once again low and steady. "Tell the kitchen century egg pork congee. Light on salt." When Harris carried the bowl in, Summer was staring at the fresh bandage coiled around her wrist. The familiar scent of century egg pork congee drifted over, yet her mind catapulted backward. Back when Ethan wasn't a stranger wearing obsession for skin, he used to cross half the city at dawn for the old shop soy milk crawlers she loved. Return with sweat beading his temples and a gentle smile. "Eat fast. They're still hot." She remembered her first attempt at cooking, charred fish, bitter greens, set before him with shaking hands. He'd shoveled it in, gave a thumbs up. "Anything my Summer makes is gourmet." Later, she learned he'd sneaked out for beef noodles, but when she teased him, he only scratched his head, eyes shining with fond pride. Once, sick with a high fever, she drifted in and out of awareness and felt someone holding vigil. When she woke, Ethan was slumped over the mattress, eyes bloodshot, hand wrapped around hers. He'd murmured, "Fever's down, thank God," voice like gravel. He'd refused to leave until noon, even though a board meeting waited. Those memories fluttered like moths against the inside of her skull, while the steam from the century egg pork congee curled between them, fragile and white. Another ghost neither of them could quite banish. Summer lifted the spoon, scooped a mouthful of the century egg pork congee, and let it slide over her tongue. The taste was familiar, but no warmth came with it. Only a faint, stubborn bitterness. She remembered the way he used to listen without interrupting, the way he'd treat her ideas like they mattered, the way he'd crowned her his princess. Now he was keeping her beside him with the cruelest leash she could imagine, spoon-feeding her despair. A tear slipped free and splashed into the bowl. She set the spoon down, drew her knees to her chest, and curled into a trembling comma. Every sweet memory felt like a razor dragged across soft skin. She bled again each time she breathed. How could the same man who once loved her like sunrise become this midnight jailer when the last shred of remembered warmth evaporated? A winter chill took its place. Summer's fingers folded into fists, and a hard glint flashed through her tears. She couldn't burn any more hours in this gilded cage. She had to run. She rehearsed obedience. Calmly she emptied the bowl, then asked Harris if the deck chair could be moved to the sun terrace for extra light. The bodyguard Ethan had posted still loomed outside the master suite door, but the terrace railing was only chest high, and beyond it a dense shrub sloped toward the the service path that zigzagged down to the lake. If she could clear that rail and disappear into the pines. The estate's back gate was a 10-minute slide downhill. For the next handful of days, she kept her voice soft, her eyes dry. When Ethan visited, she even answered a question or two. The wariness in his shoulders slackened. The guard stopped pacing and started lounging. Sometimes he'd settle on the chaise beside her, voice gentle, almost pleading, as though conversation could bandage the wounds he kept picking open. While the May sun toasted her skin, she saved every calorie of strength. Charting the shift change, every afternoon at 3 the bodyguards traded posts, leaving a 2-minute hollow. She also palmed a thin metal rod the maid had missed, a stray barbecue skewer, and spent nights rasping one end against the marble floor until it was sharp enough to bite. Then she slid it beneath her pillow like a lover's note. The chosen afternoon arrived brilliant and still. Summer lay on the terrace recliner, eyes closed to slits, watching the second hand sweep her watch. At the first muffled greeting of the changing guards, she slipped inside, eased the skewer free, and jammed the point under the railing's peg. One practiced twist and the latch popped. She swung her legs over, filled her lungs with a single ragged breath, and jumped. Thorny branches clawed welts into her arms and calves, but pain felt like freedom spelled in fire. She hit the slope running, sneakers punching through last year's leaves. Behind her the shout cracked across the garden, "Summer's gone, move." She flew. Branches whipped her face, stones turned under her soles, but every stab of pain was a certificate that she was still hers. When her legs turned to poured concrete and her lungs to boiling glass, she caught a trunk and doubled over, gulping wind. No footsteps, no voices, only the hush of tall pines and her hammering heart. A sunbeam slipped through the canopy and lit the dirt track ahead, and she felt a grin split her filthy face even as tears scalded it. Out. She was out. She didn't stop to celebrate. She dusted pine needles from her hair and started walking, thumb ready. A farm truck, 2 local buses, and 1 borrowed bicycle carried her to Eastbrook. There she picked the most forgotten studio flat Willow could offer. 10 square meters of cracked tile, a lopsided cot, and a window that didn't squeak. Paradise. She bought a cheap sim, erased every trace of the Caldwell past, and landed a cashier slot at the neighborhood Freshmart. The pay was a joke, the hours a marathon, but when she locked the door at night, no ghost with Ethan's eyes could follow. A month of borrowed peace trickled by. One dusk, head full of grocery lists, she stepped off the curb and heard rubber shriek against asphalt. An elderly deliveryman on an e-bike had lost control. Metal and panic barreled toward her. She froze. At the last heartbeat, a stranger in a charcoal hoodie bulldozed her sideways. She landed among geraniums, breath knocked sideways, gravel biting her palms. By the time she sat up, her rescuer had melted into the stream of commuters. All she caught was a tossed, "Take care." The second incident arrived 2 nights later. Fever spike. Room spinning. She fumbled for her phone and dialed the dispatch line. When she clawed her way back to consciousness, fluorescent light buzzed above a county hospital cot. A note lay beside a foil tub of century egg pork congee. No salt. No chili. Exactly the way she liked it. The nurse shrugged. "Friend in a black trench. Said to tell you breakfast is on him." Summer's heart dropped like a stone, a hazy suspicion taking root. From that day on, she listened to every footstep. Sure enough, a blurred silhouette trailed her commute. Always the same 2-block radius. When she clocked in at Freshmart, the shadow hovered at the curb. When she haggled over greens, it lingered by the stalls. One evening she slowed on purpose, ducked into a narrow service alley. The figure hesitated, then followed. Summer drew a deep breath and spun around. A face she knew too well, and feared, filled her vision. Tears still clung to her lashes. Her fingers bloodless fists. "Ethan, where is he now?" The man opened his mouth, but soft steps scuffed at the alley mouth. Summer glanced back, and every drop of blood in her body froze. Ethan. He wore the same black trench, stance still military straight, yet his face was gaunt, eyes threaded with red, stubble glinting. The old edge was gone, replaced by exhaustion. He stopped a few paces away, gaze locked on her, cautious, hungry. Summer stumbled back until cold brick bit her spine. "How did you find me?" He didn't advance. His Adam's apple bobbed. "I couldn't stay away. I had to see you." "See me?" A sob cracked her voice. "Drag me back. I finally got out." "Ethan, no, never again." The words tumbled. Raw. "I just need to know you're okay." His eyes fell to the scar she'd earned the night her escape plan failed. The sorrow in them was almost unbearable. For weeks he'd shadowed her shifts, watching her juggle cans and coins, stepping in only when a drunk customer got too close. Summer's chest twisted. Terror said run. Memory whispered stay. "Leave," she whispered, turning her cheek. "I'm fine without your protection." Ethan's shoulders snapped tight. He nodded anyway, laid a folded scrap on the bottom step. "If trouble finds you, call." One last look. Then he walked walked away, boots echoing like slow gunshots. She watched until the night swallowed him, tears falling harder than the first time. Outside the alley, Ethan lost the battle with his father. The Caldwell patriarch threatened the company's lifeblood. 3 days to board a plane and conquer overseas markets or lose everything. He spent those nights under her studio flat window, the unclaimed slip in his palm, then flew out at dawn with nothing but regret for luggage. 3 years. Summer climbed from register to store manager, traded the studio flat for a sunlit one-bedroom, filled vases with flowers she learned to arrange in night class. The past surfaced only as a fleeting ripple. She had made peace. Late autumn light poured like honey the afternoon she carried tulips into Bluebird. The doorbell chimed. She looked up, and the bouquet nearly slipped. Ethan sat in the corner, steel gray cashmere sweater, shoulders still broad but calmer, years etched into steadier eyes. Papers lay before him, sunshine gilded his profile. He felt her stare. Their gazes collided. The pen slipped from his fingers, clattering. Shock, joy, then careful tenderness flickered across his face. He opened his mouth, closed it, rose slowly. Summer's pulse thundered. 3 years of calm shattered, surprise, relief, and something dangerously like hope swirling together. The cafe music flowed on. Leaves drifted past the window. No words yet, but as he started toward her, the silence already said everything.